A recession is a significant drop in economic activity in a country or territory during a given period of time. In general, it is considered to occur when the change in real gross domestic product (GDP), that is, at constant prices, is negative for at least 2 consecutive quarters compared to the same period of the previous year. Recessions, in any case, usually come after periods of economic growth and lead to a reduction in consumption, employment, and investment. The recession can be framed in the phenomenon of economic cycles, a series of phases that an economy goes through and that are repeated every few or even tens of years. During the expansion or recovery phase, production and consumption increase until reaching the limit or boom phase. From there, and from the excess supply, prices and demand fall, and the economy begins its slowdown phase. In the latter, and on the way to the depression phase, comes the economic contraction. Consumption falls and companies reduce their workforce due to lack of demand, unemployment increases, and GDP decreases. A recession occurs when the duration, scope, and spread of that contraction is especially pronounced. As a product of an economic slowdown, recessions often lead to higher unemployment, lower wages, and lower investment. However, there is no consensus on its exact causes, which makes it difficult to anticipate them. For example, economic shocks such as the COVID-19 shutdown can cause a slowdown. There are also financial factors such as the accumulation of risk or the contraction of the supply of money and credit, and even psychological factors where an exorbitant optimism or unfounded pessimism can be behind the economic contraction typical of a recession. Apart from the recession, there are other phenomena of economic decline such as depression, crisis, or stagflation. An economic depression occurs when a recession drags on and shows no possible improvement. Although there is no formal definition, the consensus is that they occur when GDP falls by more than 10%, or when a recession lasts 3 years or more, as in the Great Depression of 1929 to 1933. The key to differentiating both phenomena is in their causes. A recession is considered part of the economic cycle and can be solved with political adjustments, such as lowering interest rates. Depression, on the other hand, is usually the consequence of a credit bubble or an economic crisis. The economic crisis also involves a recession, due to the phases of the economic cycle that may be involved. The difference with the recession is how sudden and serious it is, and especially its long-term consequences. The effects of the 2008 economic crisis, for example, lasted for at least a decade. For its part, stagflation consists of a period of recession, with a constant rise in prices. The first international recession after the post-war periods was in the early 1980s. that a 1973 oil crisis and the 1979 energy crisis caused an economic contraction that increased unemployment. Since then, there have been at least 5 recessions, the most serious being in 2009, when the world economy contracted by 2.9% after the global economic crisis the previous year, and in 2020 due to the COVID-19 pandemic, with a contraction of 6.2%. The current energy crisis, the war in Ukraine, and the rise in rates point to a new economic downturn that could lead to a recession. Goldman Sachs, one of the world's largest investment banking groups, forecasts that the Eurozone economy will contract by 0.1% in the third quarter of 2022 and by as much as 0.2% in the fourth. The causes would be Russia's power supply disruptions, Italy's political crisis, and the slow post-pandemic recovery.